So we're going to move on now to sewing machine stitches. Most of these stitches that are on the John Lewis 110, you will find these on a number of makes and models that we sell on the shop floor. So we're going to start with the straight stitch. That's used in your basic construction, and you can adjust the length of the stitch, but normal stitching will require it at 2 or 2.5 in length. We go on to the B stitch. It looks very much like the A, but if you notice, the needle is now going to move over to the left. So this helps when we're stitching in zips or cord. So you can see how it's moved over to the left. And our zigzag stitch, another common stitch on most machines. So we can vary the width of our zigzag. With this particular model, the more you move towards the sea, the wider your zigzag will be. If you want to do something like a satin stitch with your zigzag, you can adjust the length right up close on the buttonhole, and that will give you a satin stitch you can use in applique. A three-step zigzag, often known as a tricot stitch. So you can use it for decoration. You can use it with your embroidery foot for doing ribbon embellishments. And you can use it as an elastic insertion stitch. So pulling the elastic while you're stitching will make the fabric gather when you've finished. As shown there. It also will do tears and repairs on things. So with your tricot stitch, then put it onto that buttonhole so that it's nice and close while stitching over the tear. And that will give you a good repair. So we're going to look at both of these stitches because they are both the blind hemming stitch. The hemming stitch is the way the fabric is folded. So that is a normal fold for your hem. The trick is then that it's folded back on itself, and that exposes just a small part of the back of the hem. So to show you what the machine's going to do, we're going to do 1, 2, 3 stitches, and then it's going to do a zigzag. The idea is we just catch the edge of that fold while we're stitching. You can see that quite clearly. It's all in the folding technique though. So what we're looking at is that zigzag is just catching the edge of the fold. There are particular feet, blind hemming feet, but it's not with this model, which will help you with that. Now we're going to move on to the triple stitch. So this is on the stretch stitch. So all of those blue stitches are stretch stitches. This is working backwards and forwards, doing the stitch 3 times on the spot. So you get a clear defined line here that you can use on stretchy fabrics. And we have the rick-rack stitch, which is a triple zigzag stitch. I use this mainly for decoration. The smocking stitch is a handy stitch. It can be used for decorative work, so you can do a decorative hem on stretchy fabric. But also if you do 2 lines of straight stitching, and the stitch length should be set at 4 so that you can pull the back threads up to gather it up, then you can use a smocking stitch down the centre. Pull away the temporary stitching and you're left with your smocked surface. So E and F are both a finishing stitch. This has not got an over edge stitch foot, so by stitching on the edge will make your edges look quite rough. So I move in just a fraction and use my edge stitch just slightly in from the raw edge. And that particular stitch will work on stretchy fabric. And then if we move to the next stitch, F, that is for your normal fabric. So either stitch could be used for your raw edges. So with this method then, if we haven't got an over edge foot, which isn't standard in your machine, use it a little bit in and cut away the surplus. And the last stitch, the G stitch, looks a little bit like a blanket stitch. When you're working with jersey, as you stretch you can see it rolls, so this is a fantastic stitch. Again, we can stitch on the edge, preferably with an over edge stitch, which they can buy separately. Stops the rolling and plenty of stretch. And now we have the 4-step buttonhole. So you need to mark where you want your buttonhole on your fabric. And just to show you what the machine is going to do, we go to number 1, which comes down, number 2 does a bar tack, number 3 goes back, number 4 does a bar tack. So to set up, we go to number 1 and our stitch length will be on the buttonhole, and we'll be using our clear foot. So we'll be coming towards us, down to the little T at the bottom, stop when you get to the line, bring your needle out of your work, change your buttonhole stitch to 2, which is a bar tack. A few stitches with that, lift your needle up, go to 3, it'll run back up, you don't need to pull or push. Goes at the top, stop, and move to 4, which is the bar tack again. The threads need to be pulled through to the back of the work and finished off to secure them. You take your buttonhole out, pop a pin into the top just before the top bar tack, take your seam ripper, which you'll have in the kit, push it in and slide up the top to open up your buttonhole.